Sure. I'll talk it out.
Yeah, let's just have a conversation.
Track 3.
Better not be fucking Dave Matthews Band.
Okay. Those of you who don't want to be a part of this can leave now.
Derek, please listen to me.
But if you choose to stay, which it seems like you guys are choosing,
Derek, please.
you understand and agree to the following terms and conditions.
Derek!
1.
Derek, this is the virus.
You hereby waive your right
Derek, please.
to your own personal bodily integrity.
This is not you.
2.
I'm a licensed...
Per the state versus Neville Reed, my colleague and I will not be held criminally liable for any felony or misdemeanor that you may be a victim of, including, but not limited to, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, disorderly conduct, destruction of property, mayhem, and first-degree murder. And 3, terms and conditions may change or be updated whenever the fuck I want! Consider yourselves notified.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. I got news for you, pal. You ain't leading but 2 things right now. Jack and shit. Jack left town. Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
What was that ruckus? What ruckus? I was just in my office and I heard a ruckus.
Describe the ruckus, sir.
Does this mean we're not friends anymore? Not me. I'm in my prime.
Out of your mind. Ain't it cool?
First you want to kill me, now you want to kiss me. Blow. Good. Bad. I'm the guy with the gun.
What up, everyone? DJ Anubis here with you on the Metal Tower Radio podcast, here with my very special guest, good friend Omni. Thank you so much for being here to do this review with me for the movie Exhuma. How are you? Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. And after that intro, I'm pumped.
Yes, fellow metalhead. Gotta love that, of course. She's always sending me over some stuff to check out, so that's always a lot of fun. Constantly trying to keep up with the metal scene with myself and planning out new music every week. So hopefully people are checking it out and find some new tunes to check out as well. But you and I are here to talk about the movie Exhuma. It is a film that was released this year on Shudder. What drew you initially to want to check out this film? Because I know you kind of just go into your bag at times and you're just kind of picking different films here and there. What kind of led you to check this film out?
This one in particular, I'm actually a massive fan of South Korean horror. I've been checking out a lot of foreign horror over the last few years, but one of my all-time favorite horror movies comes from South Korea, and that's The Wailing. And I've been looking for something. I don't know if it's going to top it, but just something on that level, because that movie is just a masterpiece to me. So once I heard about it, I knew I had to see it. I saw the trailer, and it looks so good. It looks so unique, and it definitely is in the best way possible. But yeah, that was my initial reason.
Yeah, I know. You and I kind of talked off screen at one point about just how strong, Korea has been now with like horror and stuff. I mean, even in just movies in general, but like, Train to Busan, The Witch,
Yes.
as you mentioned, The Wailing, or even Ganjiam Hana's Asylum. They have a lot of great horror that's out there, especially compared to a lot of the Hollywood stuff that we're kind of getting. So, Hollywood's not doing totally terrible, but Korea seems to be kicking their ass pretty hard right now in terms
Yeah,
of horror.
Ganjiam's a fun one. I really
Yeah,
enjoy that one as well. All the ones you named are just
yeah.
fabulous. Yeah.
But Exhuma is basically its film includes mystery and occult elements, as well as follows the process of excavating an ominous grave, which unleashes dreadful consequences buried beneath. And it stars, and I'm terrible with these names, but Cho Min Sik,
Same.
Kim Go-yeon, Yoo Hae-jin, and Lee Do-yeon. Is directed by Jang Jae-hyun. So I apologize if I butchered the shit out of that, but the funny thing is, and I know you were the same way. When I watched this, I knew I was going to have to go back and revisit it because it's a lot to take in, and it's
Yes.
kind of like a slow burn in some ways because it just you're kind of getting into the characters, they're giving you some good background on them, and it kind of pulls you in different directions. Like we know early in the film, we have this like wealthy real estate developer and they have a child that's been screaming and crying a lot, and they end up hiring these shamans to come and see what's going on, and we discover that they're finding out that there's some spirit that's unrest, it's not rested, and it's just creating havoc. And it's funny because there's like layers to this film in terms of like how they go about finding the father who had passed away, and then we find out one of the children, nephews or whatever, had held on to pieces of the stuff that usually goes with them in burial, and so they can't be arrested when they take stuff. And it's really crazy how like you think, oh, okay, so they figure out the problem in 5 minutes. That's great, but no, there's more to this.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
There's a lot of like feng shui elements.
yes, yes,
Yeah, in this movie as well.
yep.
Where graves are at, where they're facing, where they're placed. Yeah, and if the ground is clean.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, obviously they believe in the idea of curses and the grave's call, which is what they refer to when a spirit is unrested, and basically, and this child is like being tormented somehow by this spirit that just isn't at rest. So they've got the shaman, and then of course they end up calling this mortician, a couple guys to come help them find this grave. And certainly they go and find this person's grave, and then they dig it up, and that's when they kind of discover that, okay, so one of the young kids had kept something because he didn't want to let it go, just didn't want to let it go. And so I don't know, what was your first impressions, like how this scene opened up with them finding the grave? It was like I think it was like on top of a hill or something, somewhere out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that is put them off a little bit, is where it was located. It was in what they consider to be a very strange place to bury someone. It was an unmarked gravestone, and that was another odd thing. So the main guy was getting a bad feeling about it initially from that, and he was also talking about it was not facing the proper direction. So just the bad vibes all around at this gravesite. And they did a good job of just giving you this ominous feeling. There were some foxes that showed up kind of randomly, and I wasn't sure what that was at first, but apparently that's an ominous sign that something isn't right by a gravesite as well.
And you kind of learn too that through some of the other family members that they act very peculiar. So it's like there's some sort of secret that's just not being stated.
Yeah.
And so that just adds to all the tension and the ominous that you talked about with everything else that's going on. So, like I said, you got the Feng Shui master, Kim Sin-deok, and the mortician there, as well as the two shaman. I wasn't sure if are they brother and sister or just friends, the two young ones?
I believe they're brother and sister. That's
That's my
impression
thought.
I got.
So, but yeah, so we also learned that the feng shui master is also, he sells like plots and stuff like that. So there's this like money element. So almost off the bat, I'm kind of like, well, wow, these are like some shitty people. Are they just scamming people while they're doing this? What are they doing here? So
Right. It's
there's
that's the one, the feng shui expert. I said the main guy a minute ago. I was like, wait, what? Because the name, I know
yeah,
I'll butcher it. That's the one
it's
I was
hard to keep the
referring to.
names straight.
Yeah, he's tasting the dirt, and yeah, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because you don't know if it's like some sort of act, like because they all get
Yeah,
together and talk about how they can get a good payday out of it. And he wants to get money for his daughter's wedding, and so like, man, are they trying to scam people for this? Are they really what they say they are? So you have that element of the movie in there as well as all this other stuff going on. So I thought that was very interesting as well. Um, so then they dig up the grave, and they're trying to relocate it, and then the two shamans start performing this ritual which should cleanse it, and give it clearance and make everything better, so now we don't have this problem. That was kind of an interesting thing, I thought, because they didn't go through it quickly. They allowed them to kind of explore that ritual. What did you think about all that with the song and all that?
I love that scene. And from the wailing, I love that scene as well. They do the whole shaman ritual, and they focus on it. They don't rush it. Same thing here. And I thought the sister shaman was amazing. Her acting in that scene was so good, and it was interesting just seeing them slicing pigs, and they're
Yeah,
essentially trying to um, transfer all the bad energy into these pigs, and get rid of it that way. So they're slashing into them. Yeah, the music's going out. It was a great scene.
yeah. It kind of, in some ways, weirdly enough, it almost looked like voodoo, almost just through
It did.
Asian culture. Uh, Let me see where I'm trying to remember we were here. So they do the ritual, and then they kind of hear about this monk named Jisune, who, in order to assuage grave robbers, provided the grave location to his grandfather. And then they perform the ritual, of course, and then they sever the human-headed snake or something like that. I sometimes get lost in this movie sometimes because there's so much going on. But
Yeah, there is a
it
snake.
triggers just as they're transporting this. It's like a bad omen. It starts to rain, and they have to
Yeah.
stop, because they wanted to move it to another location, but something happened, and this omen appears and stops them from doing what they want to do. So I think this is where they actually go to the mortuary, or what do you call it?
There's a temple
Yeah, because
that
initially
they
I
stop
think
at.
initially I think they wanted to cremate it,
Yes.
and I think that's what the omen was doing, was kind of stopping them from being able to achieve that.
Hmm.
And so yeah, they end up having to stop. They have the body down in some like mortuary area in the temple, and they're just holding on to it till they have time to figure it out. But this is when shit starts hits the fan a little bit, because I think they end up, somebody comes down and gets nosy to try to like open it up and
Yeah.
releases a spirit out of there, which then starts to follow back to where the wealthy real estate agent guy lives. And there's like this scene you would see in a lot of like Asian horror. He's in his like penthouse suite, and I think it's his mom that's kind of like dancing in another room, just kind of
Yeah.
drinking and having a ball. But he opens, he's sitting there, and he's like, all of a sudden he's almost possessed. Like there's this spirit that you don't really see, but it's haunting him, obviously. And maybe you could pick it up from there if you remember a little more clearly than I do. I know you saw a couple more times than I did, but he's just standing in there wondering what's going on, and tries to open the window to the penthouse and all that stuff too. I think that's actually where he lets the spirit in.
Yes. So really cool scene because it makes you wonder what's real and what's not. So he gets a phone call and it's the feng shui expert. And he's talking to him on the phone and he's kind of being told to open the window, open the window, just go ahead and open it. And then you hear knocking on the door.
Yeah.
And it's the feng shui expert as well. So is the one on the phone the real one? Is the one at the door the real one? After a little bit, I'm like, it's the guy at the door, because he wouldn't be asking him to open that window like that. And it was just this, it started getting a little bit creepier, tone to the voice. And he goes and opens that window. And sure enough, obviously, the real one was at the door. This is a really cool scene. And then, it immediately takes over him. And when the expert gets inside, he walks up to him and he starts talking as if he's like a war general or something, which I was like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And which was, it was really, really odd. He was doing like these salute gestures. And it reminded me, is it cutting back to the house where the mom was dancing, or does that happen directly after?
I think it's directly after. So I think what happens,
that's right.
Once the entity is released, it starts targeting the bloodline. So it comes after him, kills the parents, like the old man. I know he was like kind of frail and in his wheelchair or something. That was a scene in there. And then I think, of course, the mother eventually is taken as well. But I guess the grandfather, from what you were getting at, was actually a Japanese loyalist during the occupation era. So that was revealed. And then, of course, these deaths happen, but they are able to save the baby because Sandy Oak, the Feng Shui master, whatever, terrible pronouncing it, but he ends up cremating the body, and that destroys that part of the curse. And again, we're left with like, okay, we've settled it, we figured it all out, we're good to go. And then
but how much time is left on the movie?
Right.
And the movie's broken down by chapters. And it seems like, okay, everything's resolved, but there's still so much more to go. So it's like, okay, there's definitely more to this, but what is it? And what it is amazing, but we'll get to that.
That's this whole section is probably like one of my favorite parts of it, because I did not really expect this. But so months later, Sandy Oak is informed by a gravedigger about who was disturbed after killing a snake, which I guess again is more of that ominous thing with the animals around the area and stuff like that. So he revisits the grave site and discovers the head of a snake along with a second burial site. So this is even crazier stuff. So, and it's a 7-foot long standing coffin. And so again, he enlists his shaman buddies and the other guy, the mortician, to dispose of the coffin. So they pull it out, and this is actually where they rested at the temple. So they must have been having it like a hospital or something before. The grandfather must have been somewhere else.
Yeah.
But they learn about Jin Soon, and who turns out to be a powerful Japanese shaman. And I think his name was Mariyama Junji, and who has the moniker the Fox. So interesting tie in there. So then we get this like crazy ass scene, and where Bongyil, I'm trying to remember, is this the girl? Because I'm really bad at names. No, it is her. Okay, so yeah, let me make sure. No, so he's the brother. Bongyil is the brother, and Hua Rim is the sister. So Bongyil witnesses a ghoul killing temple priests, and as well as some pigs and stuff like that as well. And then they find the coffin that's ripped from the inside, and Huarim, which is the girl, is ambushed by the ghouls, revealed to be a samurai. So our
Yeah.
demon isn't your standard like scary thing that we're used to seeing. This is like a freaking samurai.
Yeah, and he's a
And
big boy, and you could tell that when he broke out of the coffin, he went through the roof. So, in some way, because you're like, wait, are you really that tall? Like, how did that happen? We end
right.
up finding out how it moves
And I,
around
and I
like
thought
that.
like
But
the really creepy part was the door is kind of cracked open where Huarim is sitting, and she hears the footsteps, and then you hear this like low voice, basically saying, asking her if she's, because he can smell like just humans and everything else, and he's like, are you human or are you part of the spirit world that I'm in? Because he's kind of lost, like he's kind of trying to get his bearings of where he is.
yeah,
And so she's like, no, I'm not human. And then he's like, well, where's my preparation for my arrival? Because he's like some big
salted
time
fish,
general.
I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And she's like, yeah, I haven't got it made yet, but I'm going to get working on it right away.
right. We'll whip that up for you.
So what is your impressions of this part of the movie right now?
This part was super cool. Like you said, you got the crack in the door, and it's showing you a little bit here and there, but you get the full, like you could tell this thing is huge. You get that scale, and it's like well over the door. Like this guy is huge, and I got the sense right then that he thinks he's still in wartime. He's kind of living in that moment. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was real creepy. Now, eventually, the demon samurai learns that Huarim is a human. Like I guess he looks in and then starts the attack.
Yeah. Yeah, so he starts to attack on Hararim, and then, of course, really not having any problems with her. I mean, he's really incredibly strong.
Yeah.
She's like terrified. And then Bong Gil shows up and he's trying to hold him off. Like, he actually, I think it's like a spear or something he has, trying to hold
Right.
off the samurai. And it's kind of interesting because you watch these two characters, which I find so fascinating because they're very confident shaman, like they're really good at their job, but now they're kind of facing something they've never faced in their life, and they both look generally terrified.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's cool character arcs for both of them, especially since Bongil's trying to. He's like, you got to get out of here. I'll take care of this. And, it doesn't really work out in his benefit. He's possessed and hurt by the samurai, who then, I think Sandy Oak shows up too. And they're kind of like confronting it. But for whatever reason, I can't remember. Maybe you do. The samurai chooses just to kind of let up and gets into his fireball and takes off. Like he's just gone. And this is, of course, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, before that, so the brother shaman, the demon samurai digs into his stomach area, and
Yeah.
I wasn't sure at that moment what he was trying to get at, but I believe it was the liver. If I'm
I don't know if
mistaken.
I thought funny is I was thinking of the heart, but I guess it could have been liver, yeah, because it was much lower.
Yeah,
Stomach
and because later there's a similar scene that happens, and I believe that's what he was going for. But after that, he obviously, after having somebody dig in his stomach, he falls to the ground, and that was such a cool part when he turns into that fireball and is just floating around above them, and there's just a cool scene of the look on the sister shaman's face, Huarim, and the terror in her face. You brought up a good point, because earlier when they do that initial ritual, they exude confidence in what they're doing. And now you're right, uncharted territory, absolutely terrified of what hell am I going to do? how are we gonna fix this? But that was so cool, because you could even hear him vocalizing while the fireball was just circling around in the air.
Yeah,
I really like that scene a lot.
Yeah, so it flies back into the mountain, of course, and now Harim is invested because now we have Bongil, who's been possessed. He's in hospital bed, and there's some creepy moments where there's some other women there, and I can't remember who they're related to, but they're all kind of sitting there, and he's laughing as they're talking about how to help him, and he's like, because he's obviously possessed, and he's kind of giggling about, yeah, you're not gonna do anything against me. I'm gonna get you one way or the other. But they also start learning about the more about the grandfather and the occupation of the Japanese, and how they. This is where I get kind of lost with some of the stuff is the spiritual spikes. Did you ever get a clear indication of what that actually meant in this movie?
No. No, I did not.
Yeah.
That is there's and I haven't been able to do too much of it, but I like to do research and kind of deep dive into movies to see if what I'm thinking is correct, or get other people's opinions to kind of help me, narrow down the plot and actually what everything means, the subtext and all that. But I don't know if it's just something they sense because they're sensitive to that kind of thing, and they could tell there was some insane thing happen when that demon samurai entered like our reality.
Yeah, because the way that they kind of explain is that these iron spiritual spikes throughout the country disrupt the country's life force so they can easily rule over the occupied Korea. So this must have been something that the Japanese shamans had done, maybe to overtake Koreans during their wartime. That maybe part of like the spirituality of it all. Figured they could get the upper hand by doing this, and maybe that's what sort of like the samurai actually represented in some ways, because he was a big boy even in his coffin. So it's kind of interesting. I don't even know if the actual body, because it was a big samurai even in the ground, so like it's like 7 foot. So I'm kind of sitting there thinking to myself, well, was it mainly just a statue initially, or was it actual body? It's really never made clear exactly what it is. Obviously, it's like some sort of guardian or whatever for that area. Maybe that's part of the spike. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be it.
But I'm like you. I have this movie is one of these ones you just can't get everything in one setting. It's like you have to kind of watch it a few times to keep trying to pick up on things, and maybe even research it, because like I don't know. I've never read any interviews or anything from any of the cast or anything, so that's probably something I should do at some point as well.
Yeah, I haven't either, and I've seen it twice. I wanted to watch it again last night, but then stuff happened and I didn't get a chance to. It was like because I wanted it like real fresh in my mind. But yeah, one thing about his coffin is it's buried vertically under the grandfathers, and they do it the way it's shot. They do such a good job of showing the scale of this thing as they're I know this is further back in the movie, but just when they're like hauling it out and they see those foxes again. So yeah, another callback to that. And I did look into that a bit, that is like an actual ominous sign.
That's cool.
In their culture.
Yeah. So yeah, it looks like I am kind of right on it, because it says again the grave robbers were basically Korean patriots, and they were trying to unearth and remove these spiritual spikes, but that the samurai ghoul is actually like a protector, a guardian for that, to prevent them from doing that stuff. So that was kind of like their the Japanese way to like make sure that no one was going to mess with these spikes.
Oh my goodness, that's
right.
right.
There could be a whole lot more sitting out there somewhere.
Yeah, I am so sorry. I was like, wait a minute, did I miss something completely? It's those physical, like the physical like tools, the spikes that they have that end up coming into play. Okay. I was like, wait, did I miss? I'm thinking
like I said,
spikes.
I think I watched this movie like twice, and I still don't have a total grasp on it, so I'd have to go back. Like you've seen it one more time to me, so even you were still kind of like, yeah, not really sure, but let's see. So now we're getting to the point where they basically want to try to, get rid of this ghoul, and in order to do that, of course, they still have Bong Deal who's possessed, so they've got to get the spirit out of him, and I guess I had to try to unearth the relic after midnight. So the relic, I'm trying to remember what that was. Do you remember what that was? The relic part of it?
Well, one thing, that scene in the hospital where Huarim is in there, and she has like I guess with a couple of shaman colleagues. That's how I took that are there to assist her with almost tricking this thing out of him. Because
Yeah.
he's possessed. He's speaking as if he is like the Japanese demon,
Oh, okay.
samurai.
So when they had the ropes on him, was that after he was in the hospital? When he was tied up and they were talking, they were trying to get or was that before where they were trying to get answers from the demon that was possessing him?
Yeah, they were in, if I'm not mistaken, the room where the casket was initially opened. Because I remember they had this like you said, rope and everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, that happened before this scene. Because it got away.
I think she was trying to see if she could get it out of him before at that moment, but she was unsuccessful with getting him unpossessed at that point.
Yeah, they ended up kind of losing the connection. Yeah.
Okay, so basically they're now trying to. I guess they say that's so long since I've seen this, probably like a week or so.
Same here.
Yeah. So the vision reveals a fox embedding a katana inside the decapitated samurai's body, turning the samurai into a ghoul, which was basically the grandfather's grave was serving like a cover for this to hide the actual samurai guardian. Yeah. But they realized also, because it was, as we saw with the samurai turn into a fireball, that's an element that he is. So there can be possible different elements. So you could have a samurai that's like water or wood or something like that. So they realize they can use water and wood to fight off this particular ghoul.
Yep.
So then they have like a wooden pickaxe, and he's at one point, this is for Sang Diok, who is trying to fight off this and destroy this samurai demon. So he's actually using some of his own blood to try to vanquish it. And we also do realize, we find out that the samurai himself is actually the iron spiritual spike. So he actually is the spike itself.
Yeah. That's correct.
So what did you think about this ending scene where they're teaming up to destroy the demon samurai?
Yeah, there was another cool sequence here where Harim is hiding behind a tree. She's trying to distract him as long as she can, so that her brother and then the feng shui expert can find what they're looking for. But she's speaking behind the tree that she's kind of the keeper of the mountain, and it falls for it at first, but eventually figures out what's going on and turns into a fireball and heads back. And at this point, I think the brother and sister are not in the gravesite anymore. But yeah, and pardon me, the feng shui expert, his name is, because I don't want to keep saying that.
Sang Diok, I think. Sang Diok, I think.
Yeah. Okay, that's right. So he's in there alone when this thing is heading back to his location. And this whole thing was super cool as well, because once that demon gets in there in the gravesite with him, it does the same thing where it starts digging into like his stomach. I think going after his liver, just like he did earlier. So that whole thing, it was very, very tense, because you've got him trying to figure out how to defeat this thing. This is before it started clicking that he could use water and wood. And once he does, it's like he hits in certain areas. He uses his blood as like the liquid, and ends up finally defeating this thing. But he's what I thought was mortally wounded at this point. Ends up,
which I thought was interesting, because both he and Bongil, you would think that because of the things that happened to him through the samurai, that they wouldn't have made it through the movie, but both end up being okay by the end of it.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think that kind of like hurts the film a little bit because it takes away sort of the like believability that they somehow survive an attack like that from something like this?
I'll say a little bit because I mean that demon was digging in there, and there
Yeah,
was a massive gash in his stomach, and he fell back. He was bleeding so much. I mean, not to say that you can't survive something. I guess I'm not a doctor, but it seems like it would have kind of completed the arc of his character for him to have found this purpose that he is this, like you said, this spiritual spike, and he was able to defeat it. But it ends on this almost happy note to where I was kind of looking around like, wait, what's going to happen? Something's definitely going to
yeah,
happen here. But it's the wedding, and taking pictures. It's like all the characters are in the picture together, and it just kind of ends. So I was left a little underwhelmed with that specifically, but not enough that it ruins my experience with the movie.
yeah,
I found a little odd. I don't know about you, but I was like, for how not that a movie can't end in a happy light. I tend to gravitate more toward the endings that I don't know what it says about me, but the endings where it's not the traditional good ending. So I thought out of the two, so the brother shaman, either he's going to pass away, or it's going to be saying that passes away, and I really thought saying that would have made it like up a notch for me personally. But
yeah. Well, yeah, and I think that's sort of the thing. Like you at first, because of how much Haran Rim like cared for her brother, like she was like really devastated by his injuries, and when he's first attacked, and it's like you kind of think that man, he's not going to make it. He risked his
yeah,
life to help her, but then he pulls through, but he's possessed, and then okay, we're dealing with that. And then, of course, saying at the end, you're thinking, okay, he's going to sacrifice himself for everybody. He's not going to make his daughter's wedding, but he's going to do the good thing and destroy this thing by the best way he can. And then he still makes it. So, I mean,
yeah,
again, like you said, it doesn't really ruin the film, but like you just kind of like, all right, but there was really no cost here. And then, as you said,
right.
it's a happy ending. So there's no like leftover curse or anything. Like we just kind of get, we're all good, man. We did our job.
Yep. Exactly. So it was it was such a tonal shift. I didn't expect it, and that's why
Yeah.
I was looking for something. I'm like, okay,
And it's something you don't normally see with Asian films horror because they usually always have like something to carry it on to another possible sequel or whatever.
yeah, like that devastating end where you're just left like,
Well, yeah,
instead I
even
was
if
just
you
like,
just had some like let's say that their wedding and they're taking a photo and in the photo you see like some little ominous thing in the background, just to kind of like, oh, it's not quite over yet,
right. That would have been cool if they did that. I mean, again, doesn't take away, but yeah, it was a
No.
little odd, the shift. But
So here we do a rating of 1 to 10. What would you give this movie between 1 and 10?
I would give this movie, it's damn near perfect. I really enjoyed my time. I want to watch it for a third time, actually. I would give it anywhere from, the acting was superb as well. The story was unique. It's something I never would have expected. So I'm going to give it a high 8 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah, I'm right there too. I have an 8 out of 10 for this. I don't know how often I'll watch it. I've already seen it twice, but again, like I am intrigued. I probably should watch it again. I should research a little more to try to understand some of the dialogue and the lingo with how this works. But I did. It was really interesting just how it was using layers to each thing. And like you
Yeah.
said, every time you thought they figured out the problem, there was like another problem we had to solve. So I thought
Right.
that was kind of cool,
Yeah, and there's the scene you mentioned with the snake. When I first saw it, I'm like, does that thing have a head of hair? Like what's happening to this thing? And you do see it later, and it's this just creepy face. And I did some like cursory searching on that, and there's like a name for that and everything in Korean culture. So that's something I want to look into a little bit more. But yeah, that was super creepy. That thing was just slithering around in that gravesite, and I don't know if it's some kind of protective spell or. I mean, because everybody that was in that grave, the workers who were like cleaning it up after the ritual took place, they all started falling ill. I know they visited one of them in his apartment at one point in the movie, and he was not doing good. His face looked kind of messed up. His eyes were very bloodshot. He was freaking out. I don't believe we got resolution with that, if I'm remembering correctly. Like, did he make it, or did he end up dying from the curse? But I think him, because the worker, he cut the head off of this thing, and he was saying when he was visited in his apartment that I shouldn't have done that. So he may have unwittingly led to some of this getting released as well. But it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't expanded upon too much. So I don't know if I'm reading too much into it. But
No, and actually, I was going to ask you, because of the way that this film kind of approached everything, do you think they probably tried to split it in two films? Like, maybe dealt with the grandfather first or the entire film, then maybe move to the samurai in the second one? Do you think maybe they tried to cram too much? This is why we didn't get resolution to some characters in the film?
I'm fine with how they set it up. Now, it does feel like, for anybody that watches, it does feel almost like two different movies. You have the everything leading up to them taking care of the grandfather and that part being resolved, and then it just switches, and here's the demon samurai storyline. Could they have split it up into two? That may have been cool, just to make a little, not really a trilogy, but like a little saga where you have part 1 and 2.
Right. The more I think about it, it's like we know a little bit about the backstory of the grandfather, being a Japanese loyalist, but we don't have like a lot of expanded knowledge there. So then again,
right,
maybe we could have learned a little more about that, plus why the family was hiding it, like basically the unmarked grave and all this stuff. Like, why did we get there? Like what it was that we got that to that point. So that would have been kind of cool to explore that a little bit. Maybe that would have helped with kind of understanding his part in all this. And then of course the second film would have been like the samurai and how that came about and what all that was about. So probably been cool. I mean, it's a good movie. Again, it doesn't really hurt it, but maybe could have benefited more to have it expanded beyond this.
Yeah. Now that we're talking about it, I think I would have liked that better, actually, because just like the worker who obviously was affected by the curse, it's like this little storyline is introduced, and then you never hear about it again. You don't know what happens to him. And like you said, you don't really know too much about the grandfather, and that would have been cool to expand upon. So we really could have used the first movie to really dive into the backstory for these characters and build that up, and then part 2, ship that. Actually would have been pretty awesome if they did it that way. Again, fantastic movie, great. But
we're not really dissing it. We're just adding our thoughts. So I know that you are working on building your own content on your channel.
Yes.
Have you decided on your name? Because I know one that I like, but I don't know if it's going to win your poll.
all right. Well, which one? Which one is your favorite?
I'm trying to remember now because it's been a little while, but screening something.
Sinister Screenings.
Yes, that was my favorite.
Yes.
But I don't know if it's winning.
I think what Nightmare Realm, I believe, is what has won so far. But what I like to do, I have my overall name, and then I would like to do some movie reactions, and I'd also like to do some deep dives, analysis and whatnot. And I thought like a movie reaction segment could be called Sinister Screenings. I thought that would be pretty cool.
Yeah. That's always a good
Yeah.
possibility. That's kind of how I run some of my stuff too. So, do you have any plans right now, like what your first part of your content's going to be, or have you got that far yet?
No, I have been jotting down some ideas. I'm going between three different things that I would want to start with. So I'm trying to figure out which one I want to do first. And since it's going to be a horror centric channel, I absolutely my favorite genre. I watch look too much. Okay, too many movies. I have friends send me, "Hey, look at this trailer." I'm like, "I've seen it," and I'll tell them, just if you see a trailer and it's a horror movie, just assume I've seen it. And I keep a list and the release dates and everything, so I try to stay on top of it.
Right.
But it would definitely be completely horror. Uh, so yeah, I'm also going between two that I've kind of narrowed down to for the overall name. And I've worked on. I have like three different segments and names for those already. So
Nice.
and I think being a horror channel, I think October would be the best month to
Oh yeah.
come out with it. So
Perfect.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Terrifier 3 is coming out, and I'm gonna go see that day
I was getting
one.
ready to go in there.
And
It's
I,
like,
yeah,
Omni's a big Terrifier fan. And I was like, you want to know the scary thing? I haven't seen the first two films yet.
no,
Yeah, I know, right?
What?
And it's funny because I keep telling, because, Kevin, he brings it up about Terrifier 3. He's like, if you watch the trailer, like, no, I don't want to watch it because I haven't seen the first two films. Now, I did watch like the first 10 or 15 minutes of the first one. I just never finished it. But I told Kevin, because he always does these like franchise movie stuff. And
Yeah.
so, like, he's going to do one for Terrifier, and then I'm getting forced to watch all of them. That's when it's going to happen. I'm going to have to watch all of them. But yeah, everybody does seem to love Art the Clown. I did see the first Hallows Eve or whatever it was, because that's where Art showed up the first time before they made him like the main character. Yep. So that was kind of cool. I thought it was cool, but I have yet to get to the Terrifier stuff. But everybody talks about it a lot, so I'm like, okay, I have to get on that. I'm lazy.
Well, there's so much stuff to watch, but I think in all Hallows Eve movies, a different actor that played Art. And I will say, the first movie is more of a proof of concept, and then in the second, it introduces some more fantastical themes, and it really starts expanding on the lore. Now, here's the thing. Yes, they are very gory, insanely, and even to like sadistic level. But there's just something about Art. He's got this like whimsy to him, and he just his mannerisms. He doesn't say a word, but David Howard Thornton is able to just bring so much of this character to life just by the movements, the facial expressions. So I'm able to stomach some things that, there's like a scene in the second that just goes on and on and on. And I was just like, but it's gross. Yes. But all I can think of is, wow, those practical effects are amazing. So I'm just like watching it like, but the third, I absolutely love that it's a Christmas theme. So I'm really, really looking forward.
Are they releasing that in December? I'm assuming if they're going to go
October 11th.
Okay, so it is coming out next month. Okay, but it's going to have the whole Christmas theme. Okay, sounds like something they would do. Well, I just read. I told Kevin about this. They are going to do a fourth film. They already said they announced a fourth film. So third one hasn't even come out yet, but they plan on this is probably going to be like your new franchise, really. Like because Saw was kind of doing it for a while. Now you've got this, so it makes sense that that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, we haven't had like a really good new horror icon in a while.
Yeah,
and
true.
Art is that for me.
For a lot of people, apparently.
Yeah, right.
For this channel, tomorrow, I told my wife I didn't have anything planned, but I actually do, because the Warlock stuff's taking place later in the afternoon, so we have to take care of our shit earlier in the day. But next week, I'm going to try to do New species spotlight for my tarantulas. I'm going to do the Brazilian black, my noob sabot tarantula. That's kind of a pain in the ass sometimes. Wednesday, Mr. Tony and the Dead and I, we do a weekly segment called The Ghouls of Midnight. This one's his pick called Iced from 1988, I believe. And then I'm going to do my top 10 Korean films, which is Omni and I kind of talked about some of those already. That's going to be on my list somewhere. And then I'll do my top 10 martial arts films. And then next month, if you follow our cinematic synergy between Kevin Lambert on the Entertainment Headquarters and I, we alternate picks once a month, movies. And the movie I choose next month is going to be a movie that we're both revisiting called The Sadness, which is a freaking amazing film. And I'm sure Omni saw
I've seen
it.
that one. Yes.
So, yeah, so it's a really fun movie, yes. But thank you so much for joining me for this review. It's been a blast. Please hang around for a minute before we leave. And then for those of you, hit the subscribe button and like, please. And then once this lovely lady over here, which I can never get my directions set, but once she gets her stuff up and running, be sure to go and like and subscribe to her channel because she is a diehard horror fan like I am. So she's very smart. She's going to have some great reviews, and she'll be collaborating with a lot of us because she's part of the Sci-Fi Society.
That's right.
So again, thank you very much for being here. For the rest of you, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next time on the Middletown Radio Podcast.